Live. So the stream's up. Okay. So sorry, does that mean everyone's good to go?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, ready then, yeah. Vigil Estoc is an outpost on the borders of open territory. It is a simple, stout keep with a single watch spire, warped by time and the elements. It is driven into a broad mound, and it is from here that the horizon can be scrutinized with suspicion. It is on the horizon a great forest can be seen, crashing and writhing like an open sea of branches and leaves under the force of a mighty eastern wind. Though a day and a half's hard march away, it stretches out like a tearing wound across the landscape. Beyond living memory, the forest was once a glade of tranquility. And now it festers in the inevitable grip of decay. And it howls throughout the wind with the voice of the wild. The wild is why you are here. There is a sharp rapping upon the oaken door to this keep. A steward boy, Eric, swings it wide, and this heavy door begins tugging in the breeze, slamming against the wall. And his face drops in awe as he beholds you all. Come inside. You are most welcome. The envoy is waiting. You are led through blood orange torchlight down a hall packed with books and journals of the old Horizon Walkers. And you enter a modest hall. Its feasting benches are pushed to the outer walls, no longer sagging beneath the merry weight of your brotherhood. Filling a large chair at the end of this hall is a large man. His belt is straining around a lifetime of indulgence. He has wiry, gingery hair that's slowly beginning to turn grey, and his eyes widen at your approach. As you each step into the light of this hall, he beholds you each in turn. He beholds the Watch. We're going to take a moment to describe our characters, and we'll begin with Luther Turwell. What do you look like?
Luther is like slightly above average height. Has one of those faces that you wouldn't really recognize. Doesn't have no like interesting scars or like extravagant beard or anything like that. It's sort of dirty, shaved to the point where it's not quite a beard, but not shaved enough to be clean shaven. He's got like a shield in his back and like quite a few axes hanging from his hip. And he wears this like strange sort of helmet that has these like pointed horns at the top. A throwback to a previous life.
Charles Villas.
Less noticeable at first glance than his companions, being shorter. He takes off his hat now that he's come in out of the inclement weather, and starts unbuttoning the leather coat that muffles him. And as he takes off his finery, because they are superior clothes against the weather. You see a handsome, blue-eyed man who walks with the confidence of somebody born into better levels of luxury and privilege. He walks as though he, with a comfort, over to the fireplace and starts warming himself by the fire. His only noticeable weapon is a fine broadsword and a great bow over his back.
Very good. And before Charles steps to the fire, it's orange light flickering across the hall. It falls on Lena, otherwise known as Bones.
Make shadows of the pockmarks in her face and lengthens the lines of her scars. The lean, middle-aged woman walks in, ducks her bow under the threshold, like under the frame, but she herself is quite and she'll nod in turn to the one who'd greeted them and scuff her boots at the thresholds to not soil the place from their march, and walk up alongside Villiers, and she'll stuff her leather gloves under her armpits and then pull her hands out free of the gloves and thrust, rub her palms together, opening her fingers out at the flames, and gives a moment of savor before she's sure she'll be called to something else.
And last entering the hall is Dagger.
Yeah, Daggle's huge fame enters, and he bumps his head as he enters under the thing, and with probably chagrining nods from his fellow companions. He is a barrel-chested warrior of many battles. His armor is unkept, and you think one of his eyes is going in the wrong direction as he approaches the firelight. There's some food in here. There has to be food. There's food in all these places.
As you're grumbling this, the boy is who's led you into this keep is almost halfway across the hall when the envoy slurs, "The chalk, boy! You must set to the chalk!" The boy sort of halts, frozen in fear. Then scrambling to a pouch on his belt, he draws out a thick wedge of chalk. And about 20 feet away from where the envoy's chair rests, he draws a line across the floor, a separation line. And he struggles to his feet after doing this and bows low. The envoy opens his arms wide, this large man giving you a beaming smile that doesn't quite meet his eyes. Everyone forces smiles these days. "It is with great honor that I stand before you to fulfill my task and deliver unto you the watch," he says with reverence, "to deliver unto you a writ from the Council of Lords. I'm to read it to you. You will, of course, forgive the precaution," and he sort of gestures to the chalk line that separates you and him. He clears a clearly a phlegm-filled throat before he begins to read from this long writ that he unfurls in front of his face. "You are to make your way with all haste to the lost vigil known as the Beacon in the heart of the wild. You are to reclaim it in the name of the divinely blessed king and his council of lords. It has been agreed that humanity must make a stand against the low creeping of the wild, and it shall begin by making bright the beacon once again. Its fires will be seen as a guiding light to all who regard it, and it is from there that a valiant stand against the wild can begin. Yours, ever gratefully, the Council of Lords." He coughs wildly after finishing this announcement and continues by saying, "And I shall say on a personal note that it is truly humbling to stand before you and witness your gallant cause. Your sacrifice and your service is for all who dwell behind the high walls of hallowed Echion, and they shall never be able to repay you for it. And he bows low. How do you take this announcement?
Lena casts a sidelong glance at her companions, like a queer, cruel, like smile, perhaps, or like veiled incredulity, and she'll turn back to the fire. Her eyes are closing slowly once and opening again, and she'll just kind of gauge on her periphery Villa's reaction as he stands next to her warming.
Once we have lit the beacons and re-established the fires there, reclaiming it for Echion and civilization, how long does the Council of Lords intend us to stay there, feeding the fires with wood for the rest of our lives, or will there be some relief sent for us to be replaced after a certain period of time?
You can be assured that if the beacons are once again lit, it will encourage all to make a more secure ranging path to its location. You will be relieved. But and he looks sort of hesitantly, it might take some time. For not all possess the skill and finesse of the watch. And he looks at you once again, reverently.
No, indeed, we are highly sought after, and though you are right, it's not ever possible to repay the debt that society owes us. Perhaps you would be able to outfit us with some supply so that our journey is made less miserable.
But of course, there is ample supply already stocked for you. I shall have the steward boy tend to you. You will receive all that we can provide you with. And then I shall depart back to the walls of Echion to deliver confirmation that your writ has been received and heard clearly. To the watch, these envoys have another name. They're known as tattlers. Because while you live beyond the walls and fight the good fight, there are other individuals who have sworn off this duty and decide instead to spend their remaining days in the wilderness, bringing messages from the Council of Lords. Is there anything else you would require before you depart? As I understand it, it is quite a long journey.
Again, I ask, is our mission merely to light the beacon once, and so its light can be seen for however long the fires last, or are we expected to keep it burning? And if so, we will need a firm date or for our replacement corps to come and arrive.
You will forgive me, hallowed warden. He sort of bows, making up some title for you. You are to hold the beacon. You are to maintain it, and you will be reinforced. I imagine in no longer than 18 days.
Inevitable break in the conversation. Daga looks to his companions. Can we eat now? Are you guys done talking? I smell something good.
Luther will look at Daga with a look of not yet. We are to hold the beacon indefinitely until someone comes to relieve us.
Well, that is what the writ has inferred.
We are to light a great light of fire and civilization in the depths of the wilderness, calling all sorts of terrors onto us, and hold that place for an undisclosed amount of time.
Well, there is an estimated amount of time, around 18 days. And yes, I do understand that these orders may seem like folly, but I am assured that no others are up to the task. For indeed it is the watch that sacrifice all, to stand against the creep of the wild. That is your sworn calling, sir.
I'm aware of my calling, sir. Very good. If you don't mind, we'll eat, and then we'll get our supplies and go.
Please, do take the hall. And he sort of like gives another nervous look. Maybe Dagger's taken a step towards that chalk line. I shall depart immediately, but Eric here shall remain. He's already been near you now. You cannot return to me,
moment.
Eric. And he takes a long bow and
Can I interrupt for a second? I'm just looking up on my character sheet 1 second, because
yeah, of course. No worries.
I have an ability, ever watchful, make a point of keeping up with the latest news, both local and from afar, as well as making an effort to know the wise and powerful. If you can freely travel about in an area, talking with locals and passing travelers for a few hours. So I guess we haven't been here long enough for me to use this. Okay.
No, but you'll certainly be able to use that. There is, a period of time where you'll be moving through open territory before you reach the wild. So you'll be able to do plenty of that on the way.
Heraldry. I imagine I come from Echion, and he's talked about Echion. I'm also from. I've got noble connections.
Yes.
Do I know of this man? Or can I recognize him? Sort of recognize any sigils or his colours?
Yes, he's known as Norton Blay, and he is infamous and very fitted to the title of envoy or tattler, as you would call him. For he has a background of shameful displays upon the field of battle. He was once of a noble rank as well, but unfortunately for him, he got caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Was not, as anyone is, permitted to return behind the walls of Echion once they have left it and trod in the wild. So he's basically been assigned this post as a way for everyone to see what he's like. He seems to relish in the role, though, obviously. Is there anything else you'd ask him before he departs? Because he's clearly on his way out. He obviously doesn't want to stick around long.
No, he's not going to interrupt him any further.
Okay. So you're able to enjoy a fine meal. Eric, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Saying about time. I talk too much.
Yeah. So you enjoy a fine meal of glazed pig and roasted apples and Brussels sprouts and thick gravy. And you relish in this because all too often you know that day upon day, week upon week, you'll be relying upon supply that you take with you on your long journeys.
When Luther has finished eating, he will pick up as much of the ham as possible and just stuff it into a pack and clean the table of like everything that can possibly be taken. Probably not going to take any Brussels sprouts in that they probably won't travel very well, but anything that he thinks even vaguely will like last even a day, he is shoving into a pack. And beyond that, if there are things like silverware, forks and knives and things like that, he will be taking those also. Since the guy's not here anymore, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And in doing so, you can add +2 to your supply score, which I will provide to you all now. As you finish eating, you can see that Eric has produced enough supply for you to last for 6 days each. So each of you get 6 supply. Now, another reason why the Watch is so adept at surviving in the wild, not only is it an ever-changing landscape of horror and despair, but very few people know how to find food within it, but the Watch can. So after those 6 days, you're going to need to, hopefully you've built up enough supply by foraging as well. It is about mid-morning at this point, so you still have the potential to making a full day's march if you wish, or you can wait. It is entirely up to you at this point.
Could we go, like, after, as the morning goes on, could we go and find merchants to buy food from to increase our supply further?
This is kind of a fairly bleak kind of area. There aren't many merchants around. However, the open territory that you'll be wandering through before you reach the wilds are inhabited by serfs of all kinds, and it is likely that you'll be able to get supply from them.
Cool. I'll just wait for that then.
Yeah.
I'll just make ready to prepare to leave as usual. Be out in the yard pretty early, probably, like just sitting on a barrel.
Yeah, perfect.
How do my fellow companions feel about procuring for the Watch from serfs or anybody else around in this needful time? Do they?
I would think that we've probably done it before, and there's probably systems in place where it's like religiously important to donate to the Watch or something like that. I would think something like that maybe, and maybe that means that they come to your house and that you give them things, or they come to your house and they take things. So it's like not really a choice, maybe something like that, you know?
Oh, that is absolutely the case. From your past experiences of working as a team, and just being part of the Watch in itself gives you a certain standing amongst those that live beyond the walls of Echion. You are revered, or rather more accurately feared, and there is a sort of tradition that all should provide in the name of the sacrifice that you perform.
Oh, good. Then who's spearheading the donation drive?
I reckon we can figure it out when we get there and see who's best suited for it. It might be Charles, maybe, since he's a bit charming. But if that fails, I'm sure Dagon can take the lead.
Okay.
Because the boy was close to us, is he like now unclean? Is that what the situation is? Because the man wouldn't.
It is implied, yes. The envoy himself is also not permitted to return to Echion because he's considered to be tainted himself, but he still looks upon you as potential for all kinds of nasties with what you've been interacting with in the past.
Okay, and like what will happen to the boy?
He fears, like all fear, that he will also be blemished by the wild.
Right, okay.
The wild is seen as an omnipotent kind of force of nature, really.
I think Bones will jump down off a barrel when she sees Luther come to the yard, and she'll go up and, after a kind of like a vulpine look around the place, she'll lean in close and say, I'd rather take from that fool envoy than the meager folk beyond who live on the fringes of the world. If we threaten to stay here longer under the guise of needing to acquire more supply, he might be forthcoming in giving us more. We don't need to part with our silver. What do you think here?
I think that we can simply walk closer to him and he might agree to anything. I think that's wise. I agree. The people outside don't have any. They don't have anything to give. So if we can take it from this guy, it seems better.
He won't hear me, but he might hear you or Villiers.
I'll have a look around.
She'll nod and like pick at her teeth as she like stalks off to some chore for the watch.
So I'll take Dagger with me, and then I'll go back into the hall, and I'll go out whatever back door that he went out of, and just start walking around the tower, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Heading for the kitchens, I think, or wherever I think he might be.
This is you're absolutely able to follow him. The door that opens up goes down sort of a medium range corridor, and then you can see that there are a few windows of carved wood where it becomes sort of like a balcony, and there's a staircase that runs down it, and that staircase arrives in a courtyard where you can see the envoy hastily packing what appears to be a cart that he's gonna, and it's sort of I can't think of the word, but a horse is mounted, saddled up in front of it.
Seeing the potential encounter that's going to happen, Daga starts rolling his shoulders and working the lethargy out of them as he follows his companion.
I'll walk down the wooden stairs with like a clunk, 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 clunk. And then when I get to the courtyard, I'll walk up to the horse and I'll pet its nose.
He turns suddenly and alarmed at the sight of you. He kind of maybe missed you even coming down the stairs. And he sort of looks at you for a moment, then realizes how close you are and how you've just touched his steed. And he goes, "What have you done?"
Just wondering.
I would ask, and he's sort of staggering back, I would ask that you maintain distance, sir.
Oh, I'm nowhere near you. You're fine. Don't worry.
My steed, it could be corrupted, it could be tainted.
It could be. I'm not. I just wonder, all this stuff that you have here, on this cart, you give us 6 days of supplies and you know it's a long way. It's not so far to Echion, and it'll be safe when you get there. Thought maybe you'd want to part with some more.
He looks incredibly haughty, and he says, "I have provided you with the supply that I was informed to give you. These are merely scraps from the road that I've picked up," he says, like hastily trying to pull tarpaulin over what appears to be like a sack of food of some kind, potatoes maybe.
Daga has already moved around to the back
Grapes.
of the cart, and he has something in his hand already from it. This looks like food. Can we take this with us?
It's a very
Daga,
dangerous...
don't touch that stuff. We don't know if you're clean, remember? Lena will call across the yard.
It's a very dangerous and
I
sacred...
bathed last week. You saw me.
She nods, conceding the point.
Sir, it's a long and dangerous journey, and we'll have to wait there at the beacon for a number of days. It'll be difficult to hunt. And so surely you can part with some of this for our sacred duty. Is it not your own sacred duty to ensure that our mission succeeds? Did the Council of Lords not demand this in the name of the King, His Divine Majesty?
You are a warden and a ranger of the watch. You of all people should understand. There is no dragging carts through the wild. It is far too treacherous. No, you would waste this fine, modest supply by taking it on this errand of yours.
Well, the cart, of course, you can keep. We don't expect to take that into the wilderness, but there is a lot of food here, it looks like, and this horse now, obviously tainted, would be difficult for you to bring back to Echion, I would think.
Yeah, you can see his face kind of tensing in ways that make his jowls quiver. But as Dagger had approached as well, he has found that he is, by this separation rule of his own making, forcing him away from the cart. He now stands about 4 or 5 paces further away from it than you do. And just waves his hands in disbelief before trudging to the other side of the courtyard.
All right, Dagger, what's in the cart?
Oh, good things. I do see cheeses and meats too.
Yeah, so by taking this cart, you can take a further, wait, let's think, 6 supply between you, so that's +2 each.
Yeah, I'll take whatever I think travels best. Actually, no, I'll take whatever I think looks tasty and will perish in like a day or so. So that we can have like a nice dinner today, maybe.
Yeah, I think some of the suggestions we've had are really good. So perhaps, yeah, there's grapes, honeys, pastries in there. I think salted meats as well that'll last you a little bit longer as well. Some mackerel as well, caught from the nearby lake as well.
Yeah, I'll like pick stuff up off the cart and I'll put it in Dagger's outstretched arms until it's like up in front of his face, and then I'll nod.
We'll take this keg of ale to keep our spirits up against the wilds.
Oh, where are we going now?
To the beacon, Dagger.
Going to light a fire, Lena will say, and like smile enticingly to Dagger.
Ah, I like fires.
She nods,
Fire's
knowing.
warm.
What was
Big fire.
your name, sir? We must commend you for your generosity. I'll make sure that the watch captain hears of it.
I am Envoy Norton Blay.
Very good.
The Council of Lords will hear of this.
Well, I'm sure they will be delighted with you for this generosity and in helping to ensure that the mission succeeds. You should be commended for it.
Yes. Yes, I am due promotion, it must be said.
I'm certain that you are. Such selfless service.
Well, of course. We all do our part, don't we?
Quite so, yes. Well, I hope you have a pleasant journey, he says, and he'll like rub the nose of the horse again, and then head up the stairs again.
Yeah, he looks darkly after you as you all make your way away. So with that said, is there anything else that you would like to do before you begin your journey east?
Nope. Just like make sure her draft horse gets heaps of fodder at like wherever our beasts are being kept here, before leading it out and then mounting it up in the yard and say the day is failing, let's away.
So you're taking the horse with you?
Oh, I have a draft horse from my starting gear.
Oh, okay. Do you all have steeds? If so, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So in that case then, we will, to make this simple, we'll say you arrived in the early morning, so you can still have a full day ahead of you. So you'll have a day to make a few decisions about this place and about the direction that you will be taking your expedition in. You will, first of all, have a 2-day ride. Wait, no, because it's riding is double speed, isn't it? Yeah.
In the open ground, we'll make short work of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and halve it probably even on foot. But we'd better lead our mount. Well, I guess we'd know as the watch.
Yeah.
Would we lead our mounts in the wild, or like let's go with that?
I would say that you wouldn't be taking the horses into the wild.
Yeah, then in that case, yeah, she'll ride the horse across the plains, and then when we get to the wild, like give it or sell it or rent it to like one of those serfs you mentioned, around the place, and with the intent of coming back through to collect it. after. At least that gives us a couple of days where we're not carrying heaps of gear and marching on foot, or at least for Lena anyway.
Yeah.
Certainly.
You've got a
Okay,
horse
so
too,
for
right,
your...
Lloyd?
Yeah, I have one as
Go
well.
ahead.
So maybe if our party finds us a surf on the edge of the woods, we can leave our beasts with the same one, and then they can use them as whatever, and then
Yeah.
we'll come back to them and see if they've still got them for us.
Mm-hmm.
That means I've probably got too much stuff to carry, which is kind of cool too. I'll have to like gift the serfs, which will be interesting for them because I'll be like, oh, I should know the watch are coming.
Yeah.
I don't have any food, but I'll actually to give them, horses and supply and like gear probably. So that would be her intent as far as when we get to the edge of the wall anyway, before going in on foot.
Perfect. So, as you all ride from Vigil Estoc with your pilgrimage now in hand, you're able to ride across open territory. And to begin with, we need to assign the roles that you will each be taking for this first day of the journey. So to begin with, we will need a leader who will be navigating for the party and will be making survival investigations and intelligence checks to ensure that you remain on course. So who will
What
take
are the
that
other
role
roles?
today?
Gatherer and Vigilant.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'll
I'll
read the
do
others then. Yeah, so
vigilant.
gatherer, you're foraging, so survival, perception, stealth to get supply, and vigilant is to sort of be on lookout for danger.
I'll do either of those as the leader commands.
I'll be porter.
Intelligence is not my strong suit. I'm sort of
Then I'll take
wily.
leader, but I'm
Okay.
not the best. But I can do it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, then I'll go Vigilant then, unless Daggett is going to do it.
Yeah, vigilant is the only thing he's qualified for.
Okay, well the other person will assist and give advantage to someone's roll.
Okay, then maybe that. Then
Yeah.
Maybe that could go to the vigilant role. Like our safety is paramount to complete the quest, and we've
Yeah.
got supply and the other stuff. So
I guess like what we want to try and do is gather supply as much as possible before we need it.
yeah, true. So advantage to the gather roll, and then just a straight roll for the other two for the start of the journey.
I would say yeah.
So that's my role. It's with advantage since I'm the gatherer. And then did you say that's survival? That's a what, worldwise
It'll be
role?
worldwise, yeah.
Uh,
So you do it at different times of the day, like you'll do it at different intervals and stuff. We just have to
Cool.
pick the rolls first.
So 15 all up is what I got.
And sorry, just to confirm which role you took again, Nico?
Gathering.
Gathering.
Assisted by Luther. Yep.
Okay. Cool. And who was leader?
I was the leader,
Wits.
and I was using survival to find my way through this area, and I got a 15.
Okay, perfect. And finally, whoever was on the vigilant, make that roll with advantage.
No, we put assistance on Gatherer, not on Vigilant.
Oh, you did? Oh,
Yeah.
apologies. Okay. Vigilant with just a normal roll then.
That's you, Daggett.
that's me.
Yep.
Okay, so it's going to be 6. Is that survival, right? Or no, that's not survival, is it?
It's
What
not
is it?
specific, actually. It should be, I think, something like perception or...
I think it's
Perception or
perception,
something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Oh, if it's perception, then it's going to be 8.
Okay.
So still bad.
Well, Dagger is busy looking at the clouds that swirl above you. While it isn't raining, the weather is particularly dull, and the high wind makes listening out for other things quite difficult. It's one of the most dangerous things about moving into the wilds. The sound of the wind is enough to make a cascade of noise through trees and branches, making it impossible to hear things coming after you. So unfortunately, you're not really with it that day. However, the gatherer role is enough for you to run into a serf that appears to be struggling with a wheel that has fallen from his cart. With a DC strength check of 16, you will be able to help him, and you will require some supply in reward if you're able to help.
I'll give it a go unless someone else wants to.
Dagger?
Now, yep, that's cool.
Thank you, a big strong boy, Dagger. I got
Yeah,
I'm sitting at a 16.
18.
Okay, off you go.
All right. So 22 will complete that task, I think.
It certainly does. You're able to brace and lift the wagon bodily, and he's able to push the wheel back in. You are each supplied plus 1 supply. He has a strange look about him as well. He is almost resistant to your help before becoming to realize that you are members of the Watch. And then he quietly, meekly accepts help and hands over food to you. He gives you each a heel of freshly baked bread.
Sorry, Rob, can I
That'll
just
be
check
nice.
on our supply? We got each given 6 at the start?
Yeah, so you start with 6. You then got +2 from the feast.
Yeah. So that'd be...
And a further +2
yeah, from
each
stealing.
for stealing.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that'll put us at 11 at the moment.
Perfect.
And we eat 3 times a day, so that will go quickly.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure I got it right. Cool, thank
No,
you.
that's absolutely fine. So you sort of find him at the end of the morning, so we can say that as you stop for lunch, you then eat one of those supplies. Let's see. Yeah, you eat and drink some food and water, so that's 1 supply each. And you can make a vigilance check here to see if there's any further danger, if you wish. And the gatherer can check to find food as well. So another roll of those.
So 15 for the vigilant.
Okay.
12 this time.
This is just open territory at this point, and there are no foreseeable threats in this area. It's kind of like open meadow. The grass is kind of graying as it has a tendency to do when autumn comes in. And you continue long until nightfall, where you have to set up camp because you need to rest. So the night sets in, the sun goes down, and there are miles behind you. So you can make up your camp, set up your bedrolls, make a fire, and we need a vigilance check, a leader check, and a gather check once again.
Vigilant is 7.
Gather is natural 20.
Oh my goodness.
And this time I'll use, just for variety, investigation, and I get an 8.
Perfect. So the one success in all of that is the supply, the gathering. Lena, you have actually gone off to get firewood for the fire. Perhaps you'd be digging a pit to mask its blaze across the flat plains, perhaps. But as you're looking for more, you stumble upon a small grove. Within it, you find a large apple tree where you're able to get +3 supply from apples that you can pick from it.
Yeah, nice. She'll do so and stick them all like in a cloak, like loop it up like a sack to carry them all. And any like rotten or useless ones, she'll just like fling into the distance for new trees, for new leaners, and then she'll make her way back to the pit fire and probably like toss everyone an apple, and then like spin the cloak into a loop, and then loop it over like a tree to keep it up off the ground, and then like join her companions by the fire.
Perfect. And is there anything you wish to do whilst you're enjoying this evening? Anything you wish to discuss, or do you get an early night?
I think Luther's just quite pleased with how the day went overall. Like, it could have been much worse. It's like a relatively decent start to the journey, and I think he's enjoying the relative safety of this part of the world before we get into like the deep dark wilds, and also that we have like fresh food still would be a huge thing as well. So sort of like, I think he's been in the wilderness enough to know that those things become incredibly valuable later on, and so he's trying to like remember the taste now of like fresh baked bread and like a fresh apple and things like that, savoring his food.
Yes, and Charles thanks you for the apple and says, "How many did you find?"
24 or more, I think. Enough
May
for
I?
someone for a day to live off apples if they wished.
May I? He says, looking at your bag of apples. May I have a recipe for apples. Do you mind if I'll take them and cook something up? He says.
I'd sin against my mare to give you them all, but 2/3 are yours and some of the pie, and I'll keep some for me and the mare.
Very well.
She'll give you two supply and she'll keep one.
Okay. And with those 2 supply, he just gets out his knife and starts cutting them up and dropping them into his cooking pot and stewing them. You see, and adding some spices from his little supplies that you see, and there's a delicious smell starts coming up.
Mendaga comes hovering. He even probably sticks his finger in there, burns it.
Duh. Not ready yet, he says.
If that's the way, then and Lena will like stretch out. That's still in her boots, but on her furs, like near the fire, and like kind of put her hands up to cushion her head from the rock underneath. And so, give us one of those Western lays that you used to say about the campfire. And she'll kind of like doze while the food cooks, and I guess she's same as Luther, like savoring, like squeezing like the civility and like humanity while it lasts.
And Charles gets out his supply of flour and mixes up some sort of pastry in another of his cooking pots. He carries a fair number of cooking pots around with him, well-made cooking pots, and he's just happily chatting away with the sort of delicious smell of spiced apple brewing, and then he pours the stewed apple into the pastries and shapes them into fish, which was the symbol of his house, and wraps them in cloth and buries them in the ash around the fire to bake. We'll have a good apple whales for breakfast, he says.
Wonderful, she'll say, and close her eyes.
There's no amount of protection or safety that you could offer me that would ever compare to the joy of having someone who can cook on these expeditions. I'd take you over 100 men, Charles.
You'll take me over 1,000 when you bite into it in the morning, he says.
Lena will roll over and put her back to the fire and see what Dagger's doing.
Waiting patiently for the apples to finish their cooking as he looks impatiently at Charles. Is it ready? I really want some.
As the night goes on and darkness begins to surround you in this small bubble of orange fire, Caius, can you roll me a d4, please, and tell me what you get?
Yes, certainly. I get 4.
Dagger.
D4.
You eventually fall asleep after enjoying your supply, and you begin to rest. And you have vivid dreams, the kind that you can't remember, but they are of violence and they are of horror. And you note a maiden with a white veil stalking from tree to tree and looking back at you with tears in her eyes. And you awake.
Yeah, I scream
Unfortunately,
out. Come back! Come back! Mother, why is she going? I scream out.
you receive 5 stress damage. And as you awaken, there is a single white feather resting upon your chest.
I think the shouting from the fitful sleep would waken Lena. She sleeps light and is pretty cagey. And she'd like unsheath her knife, look around, breathing fiercely before relaxing, and then crawling over to where Dagger's fidgeting and say, "Oh, it's all right, Dagger. It's all right. We're here."
Oh, no. I saw her. Did you see her? Mother!
Lena will look around, taking him at his words, like seriously scrutinizing like the dark, even as her eyes are blinded to it for now. She's like, listening and such, but when if she's sure that there is no one, she'll say so. If they were, they're not now, Dagger. Come, sit up.
Yeah, the feather dropping unnoticed by Daga to the dirt. He looks into the dark forest or the dark meadow. Maybe mist of the morning dew is kind of starting to coalesce, and he's just looking through the haze.
Lena will take a couple of mid-sized branches for the fire and like throw it on to like summon back up the light from the coals, and crouch down and examine this feather.
Yeah, it's a broad feather, and it is purely white, but for its very tip that appears to have been dipped in ink almost. It's got a black tip to it, this feather.
She'll put it up to her nose and sniff it.
If you like, you can make a survival roll to see if you can ascertain what kind of bird it might belong to, having lived in the wilderness for so long.
I fail on that. I imagine I got a 9 all up, but I've got a feature. Additionally, once per week, I can invoke my power of foresight. When this happens, the GM should give me a relevant piece of information regarding important events likely to occur during the covered endeavor. You can self-foresee exactly what is to befall, but you may gain clear images of where you go, places to be wary of, a wanderer you can trust, so forth. The skeins of fate are often cryptic, though, and the answers will get you often suggest that both will and will wait. But maybe it just like evokes some like sense or instinct or memory or whatever it is for her. Maybe she can't like smell anything off it, but like some foresight, some ancient like sight that's in her blood, maybe gives her something.
Yeah. You remember as a child crouching over a similar fire, surrounded by other people, different people to who you're with now. And your young eyes appear to scan the edge of the firelight. That terrible void between vision and nothingness. And the crackling embers appear to half illuminate a shape in a tree looking down at you with unblinking eyes. A white owl with black tips on its wings, and it watches you motionlessly. And then you're back in front of this fire with this memory in your mind.
The feelings, like those, that feeling or information probably just ripples through her and then like disappears into her mind with all the rest of it. And she'll place the feather into like her inside of her jerkin, and then she'll like go over and stand next to Dagger, give him like a rough couple of pats on the back, and she'll say, "I'll start my watch early. You rest up now."
He just gives her a silent nod as he kind of slowly kind of lays down. His eyes are one last look over the landscape as he tries to gain restful sleep.
Lena will grab up a fur-lined cloak and haul it around her and like step out like a sentinel onto like a stone near the camp, and just like motionlessly like an owl watch the dark wild.
And all too quickly, the sun rises, bringing light to where you've rested undisturbed for the rest of the night. Failed vigilance checks in this game not only means potential danger, but also potential horror-based experiences, and that was one of them. But yeah, you awaken. You're able to stretch out and sort of bring down the camp around you, pack up, get ready with your steeds, and we ascertain the rolls again. If you like, we can just keep it the same, or we can cycle them. It's entirely down to you.
I mean, if everyone has a better than a +2 perception, they'd be a better roll than vigilant. Okay. Then I'll.
I am a warden, which is like a bard, and I can give, I can inspire people, and my food is the sort of, my cooking is one of the ways I inspire people. Can I give bardic inspiration to my group?
Yeah, of course. And I was about to say that apple pie that you made might be able to help some of that stress damage that Dagger got as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Shall I make a cooking roll to see how I did?
Yeah.
Or
Nice.
or shall I just restore it? Because I've got campfire tales which restore hit points and things. I don't know whether that has any effect on.
I think you will have all been asleep by that, but I'll allow your cooking in the morning to be of some help to him. Let's see. I'm just looking up what, because I believe you roll dice to recover it. For stress, yeah. Yeah, definitely. So that would be a D4, isn't it? Yeah, so Caius, if you'd like to roll a D4, and then that amount will be added to Dagger's stress levels that dipped just then.
2. So 2 back from, I'm guessing that's 2 back from the meal, and then also he shares around these beautiful dolphin or fish-shaped pastries with warm apple inside, and you all bite into them, and they're delicious. And it gives you inspiration for, you can have a extra D6 on the dice roll. It should be in the next few minutes, but I don't know if we can use it sort of, or they can keep them in their stores and use them when they need to make a dice roll for, perception.
I need to use the one you gave me then, yeah, to make minus 17.
Yeah, during this meal, Daggett is quite pleased, pretending to be a big fish eating little fish, these apple cakes, as he recounts the horrors of the previous night.
I swear I saw it. My mom and a white lady.
A white lady. Was there a white owl, Dagger?
No, just a beautiful white lady. These are delicious, Charles. You should make them more often.
It depends on the apples. You should find apples more often. Keep your eyes open, Dagger, and see what you can find.
Yeah. He looks at you with his one good eye and kind of nods, crumbs falling from his mouth.
So, if we can make our leader, gather, and vigilant rolls for the day, for the morning,
I
rather.
got a 16.
Wow, I got a 22 on vigilance.
17 all up on gathering.
Okay. You aren't disturbed for much of the day. With a decent supply roll, does that mean that you restock or supply based on the roll or based on the environment as well?
Just says success nets the group 1d6 supply. Failure means nothing was gained. So that's kind of the general thing. I think if you get like a really exceptional roll, I might say it's 1d6 plus something, you know, if it was like a crit or something, but otherwise I would say just roll.
You should roll. You should roll for your supply. It shouldn't be me. So, Nico, if you'd like to roll a d6, please, and tell us what you got.
5.
Excellent. Yeah, so what do you think in open territory you could retrieve from your gathering?
I think, and like retcon this if it's not appropriate, but a little surf homestead or something out here, or some like hermitude or like ranger's lodge has been wildered and disappeared. Like the people who would have been like associated with it, but there is some stores or like rations here, like that we can find amongst it. Like a lot of it would be rotten and ruined, but there's like a cache or something, and it's not actually something from nature, but this place of death where like the wild has got whatever folk were here that had these rations or stores.
Peas.
Yeah, dried peas.
Excellent. You get dry peas. And how much was the roll again? Sorry, Nico, did you say 5?
5, yep.
Yes, if you split that amongst yourselves, whatever way you see fit.
I'll just give like everyone, like all of us can have 1, but Caius will have 2 since he like seems to cook the most. He can have the most food.
Okay. With leadership roles, do I just say if you're going in the right direction or not?
Yeah, so we also would have eaten 1 supply when we woke up. So
oh yeah, sorry, I need to keep reminding you of that. Yeah.
Take away supply and then add 1 for what we just got. Yeah, for the leadership role, basically what it is, it's like in the morning you set the course, and if that's a success, that's good. And if at nighttime you check where you've gone, and so like if you succeed on both, then you're on course. You go the distance. If you fail at 1, you go like less than the full distance. If you fail at both, you get lost, basically, you know.
Okay.
Or you're significantly off course or something, you know.
That roll was fine for the meantime. Then that's fine. It's fairly easy at the moment because you're in open territory. And the vigilance roll was really high, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I guess Luther is still riding his horse, and he's like used to this. I guess he would have done some scouting and stuff in the past, and has a sort of falls into a pretty comfortable rhythm of like riding ahead, making sure nothing's in the way, and then riding back and keeping vigil, I guess.
There's something that catches your eye whilst you're sort of riding along a dust road. The forest, the wilds grow ever larger and larger as you approach. Its borders stretching beyond what you can see. You see a small group of serfs sat in rags by the side of the road. And on spotting you, a bedraggled-looking male with missing teeth seems to clutch something in his hand. Small white object that he presses into the hand of a small child who goes running off the up the path before you.
What was that? What
I'll
was
look
that?
to like the others for some cue, and if there is no cue, I'll like pull my bow, but not an arrow, and I'll point with my other hand. Girl, stop! What was that? And she's saying that to the man.
The man just looks at you, sort of weakly up at you, and just goes,
You're
She'll
speaking to the what? To the rangers.
a few more groans and garbled noises come from the man. He sort of gestures like wildly with his hands, but isn't able to communicate anything to you really.
Lena will ride up to the girl, like trot up or canter up if need be.
Yeah, absolutely. You do so. She stops, sort of looking up at your horse, and then looking at you, fear in her eyes.
It's all right, girl. No one's going to hurt you. What have you got there?
Wordlessly, she sort of opens her small hand to reveal a painted stone, glossy and white.
Lovely. Who are you giving this to?
She points to a village yonder.
Who's there? Speak.
And she sort of doesn't know whether she can or not, and then manages the word prospect.
Oh. You like coloured things, don't you? And she'll point down to the shiny blue stone.
She looks at it and then nods up at you.
Lena will pull out a silver piece and press it into a dirty hand. Could you take me to prospect too?
She nods vigorously and sort of scampers towards the village.
I'll fall in tow with her, but beforehand I'll like look back across and catch eyes with Luther and Dagger, just to let them know what I'm doing and where I'm going, while Villiers is rebuking the garbling man.
Yeah, I'll poke him with the flat of my longer axe, like from the top of the horse, like poke his shoulder. You need to speak.
He makes like another warbling kind of cry, and he sort of it's like hurls his arms up in sort of a defensive, and sort of he seems frustrated that he can't like make anything clear to you, even though he's like just wailing at you.
Is it just him, or is there a couple of them?
There are a couple others as well, and they sort of just appear to be like watching this in silence, but you fear, well, I don't know, they're just watching.
Is this man mad?
There's something definitely wrong with him. I'll put that to you right away, Lloyd.
He'll ask to the serf sitting there, like, is he known to be insane? What's happening here?
The other one, there's an older, bold man who sort of looks up to you and sort of points at his tongue, and then like sort of gestures to them, to like all of them.
Who did this, and why? What did you do?
He sort of points to the horizon on which the wilds rests.
Huh. You like look back at Charles. Something did this to them? Would we know of anything? Could I make like a check or something to? Is there like a creature that does this, or is it something that is known?
Yeah. What would you make? What would you be rolling with?
So.
Safe.
Yeah, like in Islam it'd be Saith wise, like magic, or I guess in Middle Earth it'd be Shadow Lore, or that
yeah,
kind of thing.
That's perfect then. Yeah.
It's 19 on the die, so that'll make it an 18.
This is perhaps an affliction that you might have come across before, actually. Serfs that live within the wilderness or have been affected by the wilds in some way sometimes find themselves losing innate normal abilities, such as being able to speak. This is often down to severe psychological trauma.
All of them. He pointed to the wilds, not to the village where Lena is going, right?
Yeah, he definitely pointed to the wilds. Yeah.
Okay, so just to make sure she's not going there, like where this happened. Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we'll actually cut back there actually, because Lena, as you approach on horse, the little girl sort of picks up speed and runs sort of directly to what looks like an alderman of some type, a prospect, a title given to people who run mills and the like, and general sort of manage toil-based jobs. You can see that this village is attached to a lumber mill. You see trees kind of resting on their sides, ready to be hacked into firewood, or other anything else workable wood could be used for. And on your approach, he opens his arms wide and says, "What brings you here? You are of the watch."
We come on an important errand for those blessed higher than us. We've travelled far and have far yet to go, and have stopped here out of curiosity. People gathered to see us, though they could not speak, and one gave this girl a stone to give to thee, and that she'll flick the blue stone towards him from in her hand.
Ah, yes. It is something that I have provided them with to inform me of certain approaching people.
I see. That as well. And here we are. How many have you?
Well, no more than 12. He looks around. I
How
must
far?
apologize for their welcoming to you. They somewhat lack the vigor to speak.
What devilry has unbewitted them?
Oh, I would have thought you would have known. It is a dark place here. The shadows grow long, the nights longer. But I take pity on these people who have suffered so, fleeing as they are from the east. And I put them to work. I give them meaning.
We each of us have our order and our way. If you'd allow it, we'd like to rest here this evening and share your shelter. We can offer you some silver if you've food stores to trade.
There's more of you, he says, suddenly alarmed, looking around and then noticing the approaching the rest of you. The rest of you have now joined in this sort of lumber village. The rest of you have joined Lena, and you come across this conversation now.
Aye, we are four, and here they come. She'll point.
Oh, we're very honoured. We're very honoured to receive mighty members of the Watch. There are many tales of your deeds.
Ah, please, man, prate not. Let us break bread in peace instead of flattery. We are passing through not for your praise, but for your shelter. See to your people if that is your will out here. But save us your prating.
Well, yes, of course. Preparations will be made. Please make yourself uncomfortable. Hitch your horses to our fine tree here. And he sort of like just babbles and makes it sort of like pleasantries, clearly uncomfortable with your presence, and goes off to get his people to rustle up something for a shared meal.
She'll go to her companions and say, that prospector, he sees to these made dumb folk out here. They lumber for his care, and he gives them tongue through these painted stones. She doesn't have it anymore. She flicked it to him, but she'll mention it to the others.
How kind-hearted of him.
Indeed. And for the bargain, and then she'll like tap like her yellowed middle tooth and say, oh yes, his soul will be blessed. But the girl, she spoke his title. And then she'll actually look around, like patting her hip. Where is that girl?
Yeah, she sort of sat on a small fence across the way, just staring at you, having not broken eye contact with you since your arrival.
Are there many? Go ahead.
There you go.
I was going to say, are there many serfs just milling about around here? Does he have many under his employ?
All the others who weren't. So there was 3 of them at the front, just resting by the road. Everyone else here, the further 9 of them are toiling upon a great sort of saw thing that rests above a great tree that's been felled.
We may need this man and his lumber for the beacon ere long our employer takes to come to relieve us, or at least sends his minions.
Could be so.
We should seek friendship with these people. He seemed worried that we'd take from him. I think we have more than these folk. It would maybe not be right to ask. They do seem... She won't say what they seem, but it's plain to see. Like, she pities them.
Yeah, Luther has a strange feeling about this Alderman, that there's something going on here, that he might be involved in why they can't speak, and that there's some sort of slavery afoot.
Yeah.
But...
And that we need his lumber too makes it...
Yeah, it's sort of like a not my circus, not my monkeys situation, you know?
But it will be. Like, we'll need the monkeys or the circus at one point. Well, maybe she senses that on your face and she says, what does your gut say?
I don't trust him.
Enough to watch him?
I don't know. We have to get to the beacon ahead of all else. If we had more time, I would stay here and see what all of this means, but we don't have that luxury.
Shall I hit him? Make him talk?
We might need his wood dagger, but one day, if he ever wrongs us, yes.
Prospect, you've been here some time. What do you know of the beacon in the forest?
He returns with other serfs in tow, pulled from their toil to set up a fine table. I say a fine table. Recently created table, probably, if there's a wood carving to be done here. Sort of brushes wood chip from it and brings up stools and stumps of wood for you all to sit upon. Oh, the beacon! Yes, well, there's all sorts of stories about it. It was lost a while ago now, although memories have a habit of fading. And he fixes you with a unyielding stare, Charles. Only the horizon walkers of old would know of it now, I'm sure.
Have you ever seen it burn?
And he sort of looks wistfully into the sky, trying to recall if he has ever seen such a thing. You know what? So he looks, and then you could sort of see like tears like form in the corner of his eyes, I saw the fire once, many years ago.
Tell us about it, he says, handing over an apple fish.
He takes it and then suddenly drops it, and he says, "It'll do no good to speak of such things."
Remembering good memories is good for us. It keeps the wilds at bay, and it keeps the mind healthy. So does food, he says, picking up the apple fish, wiping off the dirt off it, and giving it back to him.
Yes, you are very kind. Not many kind people take these roads. We have been wary. It is the reason behind the painted stones.
A very
So
sensible precaution.
They tell us whether we should be wary. And he begins to enjoy this pastry that you've given to him. And he messily sort of stuffs it into his mouth, just half of it around his mouth almost with the mess he makes with it. But he looks to be genuinely pleased and sort of bolstered by this small act of kindness.
And tell me of your memories. How old were you? What were you doing when you saw it? And he'll coax a story out of the man, or attempt to.
He, with this gesture of kindness, his defensive walls are sort of lowered to you a little bit, and he tells you about how he was a child and running to the very highest of the slopes of the open territory. You can see off into the forest, and far beyond, almost like the final glimpse of a horizon in the distance, a small orange light surrounded by overwhelming darkness.
Which hill was this? Has the hill been claimed by the wilds, or is it still out near the village?
No, this was many years ago. I lived further north at that time. You see, if you are to be heading into the wilds, if some awful reason compels you to, then from this point there are three ways, three paths. To the northeast is mountainous country. And while slower going, it will give great boons to your navigation, basically. But there are other paths too that may be taken.
So you are saying three ways into the wilds: the highlands in the north, which offer more views to orient ourselves, and then two through the wilds, through the forest itself.
That's right. Due east, you can
deceptive routes.
Due east, you can simply take a direct course. But I fear to think of the folly that it would be to march directly through. But you are the watch. You are different. And his hands start to shake at the very mention of it. And then southeast, there is Gulsang. If you travel through the netting fens, you will reach a small, well, village would be a generous word, but a collection of houses and hovels. They fish on the lake there. A boat may be taken deep into the wilds. It will be faster, but significantly more dangerous.
Forgive me, I'm still curious about this hill you climbed. Can you see it from here? He points out the horizon and the sort of contours of the land in the distance. Was it any of those hills that you climbed?
He sort of points northeast. The Shale Pass, that would lead you in that direction. I used to dwell up there, but I fear the settlement no longer exists. So really, just to make this clear then, you essentially can pick which way you want to go. If you want to have bonuses to navigation and begin by going up the mountains, at least, that's where you'd want to go. You can make a direct course through the forest, but it's just going like in a straight line towards it, so you can decide whether or not that is entirely wise. Or, yeah, it will be slower to get to Gull Sound because you'll be going through the netting fens, which are like riddled with small brooks and swamp lands, really. But then once you get there, you'll get to Gull Sound, which is a small fishing village where you can take a boat across the lake. So it's down to you, really.
They all sound fucking miserable.
Yeah.
If we
Luther
go
will
to
sort of roll his eyes at the thought of walking through swamps for days and having wet shoes and wet feet for several days. And then he's thinking about walking up a mountain and the agony of his legs and back after all of that travelling. And he thinks about walking through the forest and tripping him on endless roots and walking into endless branches and strange noises, keeping them awake all night, every night, and thinks, none of it sounds very appealing.
Dagger, which do you think?
Dagger likes the mountains. Let's go that way. I don't want to go through that dreaded swamp. It smells funny. At least I think it smells funny.
So also I'd like to make this clear as well. If you decide to go one path, but then would like to deviate back in direction, so say if you go northeast into the mountains, you head up there, but you don't like what you're running into, you can then turn, further south to then get back to the where you would go. So it's not like you're
locked in or
stuck
whatever.
to one route, but it's where you're really beginning.
The swamp is the quickest way, though.
Through the forest is quickest, I think, right? Like straight line.
yeah.
It's it's
ostensibly
slower
the
at
quickest.
first to get to the lake, but then once you're at the lake, you can then take the lake into the center of the forest. So, but it's whether you want to risk that because they're hinting that it's pretty fucking awful.
See, we could leave the beasts and our gear that we can't march with here at this place.
Oh, they'll eat our horses. 1,000,000% they'll eat our horses, and I'll have to kill them all if they eat my horse.
So be it. Better they eat our horses than the woods does. But yeah, and if we're going to decide like go by the mountains, then yeah, we could leave here and head up that way. Otherwise, I'm happy to go through the woods. But you guys would know from traveling with Lena for a time, she's handy in fields and in woods, like when scouting and foraging. But won't be opposed to the mountains if that's the course that the watch decides.
The danger that I see in the lake is we have to take a boat, and we don't know what's in the lake, and if we have to fight something in a little boat,
Or if there's a boat.
or if there's a boat, yes. Notably, my fear and my worry is that if we are accosted by something on a small boat, that will be very difficult. And I don't fancy drowning.
Yeah, Daga nor Dan want to go that way.
The advantage of a boat is you can carry more, but I take your point, and I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue for the boat.
Yeah, I'm not interested in that, but I am interested in going the direct way through the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Like to cover the same territory to go by a mountain would be like quarter speed. If if difficult terrain is half speed, it'd be a long
It
time of
depends.
supply with low forage in the mountains.
Yeah, so
Whereas
better navigation but slower travel in the mountains, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
potentially less food and stuff in the mountains as
Yeah.
well. You know.
probably less
Forests are the
danger
best.
as well,
Yeah.
though.
Well, yeah, I agree with the forest route.
Forests, forests are the best place for food.
Yeah.
And danger.
Okay.
But yeah,
Everywhere has their danger.
And will we leave our gear and beasts here in the care of this prospector and his people, or set them free? Like they will not endure the forest like we will.
I think we can leave our horses here, and with the intent of returning would be the best thing.
Yes.
Carry as much as we can, you know.
The
Yeah,
prospect.
Under the charge of the prospector.
Yeah.
Yeah, this prospect can tell you that there is a timber shack about half a day's ride from this point. You could ideally use that as shelter for tonight, and that would sort of be your last homely house, as it were, before you enter the wilds.
How far are we surmising it is from this location to the beacon? You know?
Difficult to say.
Difficult.
Do a survival check. Well, it's hard to say. No, I reckon you would have just been told. It would have been about 12 days estimated.
Holy shit. Okay, that's a long way. We don't even have enough food, so yeah, we'll run out before we even get there.
That's why he was very careful to say you are the watch and resourceful and can find food when other people can't.
What about if I guess it's pretty grim, but like, we could do it. I think I have a pack mule as well as a horse. We could like lead that in, and when it dies, eat it. Like, that would be a massive amount of supply.
Yeah.
Feeding horse. Where are we?
Might be quite stressful to murder a beloved pack mule.
Yeah.
No, not for Lena. And nor is like her pack horse. It'd be beloved. It'd be folly. It must have been like I either have a pack horse or a draft horse, because I've just got draft horse on my thing.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
I won't use my draft horse. That's too expensive to eat.
Yeah, I think we can leave them here. I'll say to the prospector that this horse's name is Francis, and he has been my companion for many years. And if I return to find him in any way harmed, I will harm you.
Like he looks at you with wide eyes. Why, no, sir. You are of the watch. We would not dream of bringing harm to this animal. It will be fed. We will tend to it.
Good. And then I'll
You'll have a
gather up as much stuff as I can carry, and yeah. I reckon at this stage we're like well versed in like correctly stacking things so that you can walk and that kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah, I think Charles, because Charles was the nicest to him, I reckon, he will, as you go to walk by to sort of start your preparations or whatever, to leave for your afternoon jaunt. And by the way, one supply for that lunch that you had as well, if you're eating out of your own stuff. He grabs you by the sort of the upper arm, and he brings you close, and he says, "There are many like us that dwell within the borders of the wild, dear friend. And I can assure you they are far less welcoming. You would be cautious, to be vigilant against even dangers that can smile." And he gives you like a wide, tooth-missingless grin.
Being in the watch is always being cautious. We are wary, he says, taking his hand off my shoulder and returning it to him and giving him a little smile.
He sort of backs away like a giddy child looking at his own hand that had touched you, and sort of like dithers off, muttering to himself.
And I take him by the shoulder as he's wandering off, and though I thank you for your warning, and but I also have a warning. Remember that the Watch also are dangerous, and are not always disarmed by smiles. If there are unfair hearts behind them, or untrue hearts behind smiles, rarely fool a Watch. Look after my companion's horse. He does love it dearly, and will and I do not wish to see him grieve. It is a horrible sight.
The smile that was plastered across his face kind of melts at your words. And he just gives you a long look and he says, under his breath, completely despondent now, "The beast will eat like a king."
Good. And he leaves him and goes back to join his companions, rearranging the contents of his saddlebag so he's got what he needs in his own backpack.
Perfect. So this counts as your lunch then. So you've done the supply. If you do we do the rolls for this section? I don't think we did, but did we?
I don't think so.
Nope. So we're heading to the before we reach this fork in the road, we have but to get to this timber shack, and then you will have to make your. Well, you've already decided you're going straight through, aren't you? But regardless, we're heading there now. So I'm bringing the rolls again. So yeah, if we have a leader check, please.
I failed that one.
Oh no, that's just
6.
the
That's just morning and evening, I think.
Yeah, morning and evening. Yeah. So
okay.
gather and vigil, please.
Okay. 14 for vigil.
Okay.
And a 14 for me as well for gathering.
Yeah, I think you're able to you cross a fresh running stream, and you're able to fill your supply with water, fresh water, clear and cold. You each get a +2 supply from the river. And for
each or in total?
Sorry, 2 each. So you're each able to like fill up your water skins to their maximum, and maybe put some on the pack horse as well. And vigilant. Well, it was a success. Nothing seems to bother you. Though by the time night begins to fall, you are on the very reaches of the wilds now. It's vast shape just looming over you. From here now you can see twisted trees with roots that seem to fracture up out of the ground like bruised, swollen knuckles. And before this twisted image, you see an old shack filled with tools and leather and straps and things, all in the tools to aid in the felling of trees and things like that. Rope as well. It'll serve for shelter at least. So as night begins to fall, I would ask that the leader makes a check.
I'll stick with the same one, so I failed. Get a 6.
Okay.
I made one at midday, and I'm not going to sort of...
Yeah, I fail at gathering too. 6.
Yeah, I did the same.
I also fail at vigil.
Right.
With an 8, I assume that's a fail. Anything under 10.
Yeah, no, that does fail. So, first of all, for the leadership, it kind of works. Perhaps you would just waylaid by the fact that you stopped a bit longer at this village. So it took you longer to get here, basically. There was a lot of perhaps confusion about where to put Francis the horse, an insistence that he belonged in a place that's protected from the elements and things like that, perhaps. And once arriving here, you were and on the journey here, you weren't able to find anything. Maybe taking a shot at a small rabbit that jumped in your along your path, but it was able to scurry away before it was taken down. And unassuming of any danger as you approached the cabin, you were able to bed down and rest. Can all of you please give me a perception roll, please?
Ten.
21.
17.
I missed yours, Daniel. What did you say? Was it 21?
21, yeah.
So the rest of you might see this, but Dagger, you definitely see this, and it's quite fitting, really, because night's beginning to fall once again, and you're stood in this in the threshold of this timber shack, and this strong wind is beginning to pick up again, and the tools and old saws and rusted blades begin sort of swinging together in the wind. Like it's incessant, and it puts you on edge. And rolling your shoulders, trying your best to ignore it, you look out at the threshold, and beyond in a tree, looking at you in the distance, there's a tawny owl.
Yeah, I'm sure my breath catches in its throat. I look over to Lena. Lena, there's an owl. I see it. And I point in the direction, trying to give better sight.
Lena will level her gaze at the owl pointed out by Dago. She'll take a few steps forward from him towards it and then come still, observing it from a distance.
It sits there, kind of motionless, and then its head sort of glides sort of effortlessly around and then back, and then as it does look back, it fixes its eyes on you, Lena, and is motionless.
She'll reach into her jerkin at the breast and pull out a white feather tipped in black and hold it up at the thing.
It watches for a long moment and then takes wing, vanishing into the trees.
Yeah, I look confusingly at Lena.
There is a smell of frying onions and bacon.
Well, it definitely pulls me away then.
Yeah, Lena will stay for some time to watch the wherever the owl disappeared to and contemplate whether following it, but eventually the smell of bacon is like too great a command to ignore.
Should we take some of these tools with us if we're going to be like felling trees to like keep a giant pyre going?
So Luther has carries upon his back like a bardiche, like this big ass axe, and also like several axes at his hip, and so he would be unusually well equipped in terms of felling trees. But I think more tools is always better. But it's a question of how much space do we have to carry these things.
I'd happily take an axe or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be too much trouble for you to take axes and things like that.
Like a double work saw will definitely fell a tree faster than like an axe would.
Yeah.
And
There is one of those, yeah, with a handle on either side, about 6 feet in length. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I might. I think I might grab like a sweeping brush and like kick the end of it off to have something to like walk with, like a sort of walking stick. But beyond that, I think he's pretty well equipped in terms of axes and stuff like that. And I think the thing with the owl like sort of went by him. He was like too engrossed in the food.
Yep.
And wasn't, Dagger's always shouting about stuff. And so I think at this stage he's sort of like, well, this is what you get what you pay for sometimes with Dagger,
Like a dog barking at a bird in a tree.
So,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, Villiers will be the same. And tonight is ham and onion pea soup.
Oh, delicious. I'll praise you like a nobleman's cook, as I like taste at it delicately, like I imagine a lady might be on the veiling walls of Echion, and laugh and enjoy it thoroughly.
But a meal is not simply something that fills your belly. A good meal also fills your mind with good conversation and cheer. Cheer of better times and good stories. Is that not so, Dagger?
Oh, yes. Yeah, certainly.
as he's like munching on whatever deliciousness you've prepared.
The best meals.
I believe it's your turn to tell a story today, Dagger.
Oh. I'll tell you about the story when my mule kicked me. You like hearing that one? Right in my head it did. It gave me this eye. Then things got all cloudy and I couldn't remember things. Like my sister's name, she would have to say it 10 times before I got it again. Then it got a little better. Then I joined the watch. That was many years ago. A story like that? You want to hear one like that, Charles?
We've just heard one, but tell us again. Tell us in more detail. What's your sister's name today?
Claire. Claire's her name. Beautiful. Or was it Charisse? I don't remember.
I never knew her, Dagger. But from what you say, she was beautiful.
Oh, she was beautiful.
And he seems to be lost in thought, trying to like recall the memories that are like straining his mind to do so.
And he'll have heard your stories before, and he'll be reminding you of little details, sort of coaxing your own story out of you.
Yeah, and he nods like that was always even in he nods at your embellishments, even like adding them and kind of making it more so grand.
I hope Francis is all right.
I think he will be. That prospector seemed adept at least at caring for beasts. Dagger had a nightmare again the other night, she'll say, and she's like whittling at a piece of wood at this stage after the meal, sitting next to Luther, and she says, and I saw something, and she said saw something like that before, like mentioning her sight.
What did you see?
She'll take out the feather after she's like split like maybe an inch down into the back of this like long thin twig she was whittling at, and she'll take out the white feather out of her jerkin and place it in like the first arrow of fletching in an arrow, and begin winding at it with like a little bit of string. A white owl, that's what I saw. And this was on Dagger's belly when he awoke from the nightmare before my watch last night. I think something visited him, and I've seen a part of it, perhaps. This owl. It was in the tree when we made camp here, and flew off to the east.
Does it have some meaning to you, the owl?
She like purses her lips and like shakes her head, shrugging her shoulders.
The owl. What does it mean to you?
Well, we grew up poor, farmers, and my husband was a farmer before. Well, they always liked owls. They called them farmers' friends. They kill the rats. But I don't know if this owl's for menace or help. If it's leading us to something, or if I don't know. Well, I'm making an arrow for it anyway. Dagger's nightmares. They're not always stories. Though my sight's not always what we'll see.
What about the lady? The one in
The
white?
lady.
What lady,
Tell her about
Dagger?
the lady. She was beautiful, as ladies go, and she wore white.
Luther's like looking at Dagger like there are going to be more details here, explaining what the white lady is, because she was a lady and she wore white is not a description or any sort of explanation. And so he's sort of like looking at Dagger, like waiting for more, and then realizes.
I mean, that's all that I saw around is like a woman in white, right? There was no other discerning features that I would remember, because it seems like a haze, right? A dream.
I mean, it's
the fear wasn't.
she wore a
emanating
veil,
from
so
her,
you
right?
don't know. Yeah, you don't have the color of her hair or anything, but she was pale. She had tears in her eyes. She was walking from tree to tree in and out of the vision.
Okay. But she wasn't the source of the fear, right? It was something.
Yeah, there, like I said, there were parts of this dream that you don't remember. You know, when you wake up and you just can't recall it.
Yeah.
That was really the source of the real upset from waking up after that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
She was crying. I heard her. I heard her, yes. Her crying, I heard it in my ear.
Is that some vision? Some spirit of the woods? Or some memory of yours, Dagger?
I met no white lady, though. I don't remember my mom's face. I called for her to see the white lady, but she wasn't there. Have you seen my mom? Does she wear white?
I'm afraid I've never seen her, Dagger.
In your other stories, she wore yellow and russet and green, but I've never heard her described in white.
Oh, you know, Charles. You know for certain. Then I guess not. She's probably not my mom.
This could be some ensorcelled victim in their cry for help, or some cruel plight of a wilder thing. Either way, we should not leave it to our tale as we push on to the beacon.
I agree. What if it's following us? Or worse, guiding us somewhere?
We are already being bid to the darkest of places.
So do we take it as an omen that we are doing the right thing, or a warning that we are doing the wrong thing?
She thinks of farmer's friend. like an old, like the faint vision, a hazy memory of her father, like speaking of ours as farmers' friends. But then she thinks too of the mad prospector warning Charles to say to not trust that things are how they seem once you're in the wilds. So she's torn, like for some weird reason, between those two. Eventually, she'll say, "I know not, but I think I wish to follow it to whatever end it may be, whether it's folly or not. For isn't that what the envoy would have of us anyway?" She'll let out a bit of anger, I guess, probably just in frustration at the march and latent fear of going into this kind of terrorizing place again.
Francis has always been the only creature that was nice to me. And I left him there with those people. You know, it's maybe shocking to you, this, or it was shocking maybe when you came here to the watch, that people were afraid to touch you or be near you, but that has always been the case for me, as you know, as son of an executioner, and you can't touch those people, and so that's not that hard for me. When I didn't have any friends, I couldn't have any friends, but I had Francis, and now I don't, and he's with those people who are insane, and that man who I don't trust.
It's always weighing possibilities. We don't trust the man, but we trust the forest less. I think there is less risk. There is risk leaving Francis with the man, but there is more risk bringing along with us. You were a good friend to Francis leaving him.
You're right. It's the stress of the journey, I think, already.
This place claws at us with branches unseen.
Claw back at it. Lena, you are a huntress.
She'll finish fletching the arrow now with her boyer's tools and put it in her quiver amongst the others. Some of them she's dyed different colours for their different purposes, like Batgirl. And she's going to get up from the camp and stalk off in the direction that her and Dagger had seen that owl fly. And she'll say, "I'll take first watch," and she'll go off to that.
Perfect. So we'd already done those rolls for the evening, but yeah, you're able to cycle your watch and rest. For those that you resting, I'm sure you will do something about this, but for the longest time you were frustrated by the scraping noises of iron, of the tools moving in the wind. So maybe you can, I don't know, would you leave that or would you bring that down? Because otherwise you won't get very good sleep.
Yeah, I think if Lena goes off hunting, then Luther would set to trying to take the stuff down and stop the noise.
Yeah.
I think Charles would try and ignore it until, well, but you're taking it down, so that's fine.
I reckon they're sitting next to each other and they're sort of quietly talking, and every time there's there's a little
pause. Yeah.
Pause and a little face that appears, this sort of frustrated look, until finally Luther is like, "God damn it all!" and stands up to go and fix it.
Perfect.
I'll go and join him at that, taking it down and looking at the two-handed saw, wondering whether it's just not practical to carry.
Well, it can be turned in on itself, right, to limit its space. I mean, if it can be bent around.
Yeah, I've got two ropes as well, so you can bind it.
Bind it, yeah.
We can throw a cloak or something over it too, so it doesn't chafe or cut if we're going to cut it.
How kind of rusted and how usable is it?
Certainly seen better days, but it is usable. You could use it.
Then let's take it.
Okay. Yeah. If you'd like one of you to add that to your equipment. Can Caius, would you mind rolling me a d4 for me, please?
I get a 2.
Okay, so Charles, when it eventually comes to you taking a nap, you have a peaceful sleep. In the middle of the night, when darkness it is at its height. Despite having moved them, you still hear the noise. And you take 2 points of stress damage as a disturbing echoing of your evening now plagues your dreams. You awake, daylight barely touching you really because the mass of the forest is before you. And as you take your first steps towards it, that is where we're going to take a short break. So let's go away and we'll be right back soon. So after these fitful dreams, you awake, and as I said, this is your first day of walking into the wild. And as we do so, I'd like you to assign your roles for the day: leader, gatherer, and vigilant.
Dagger, come help me forage in the woods, and we'll see if we can find the white lady or that owl.
He nods. Okay. So can I give the help action by just beating a 10?
That's right. Yeah, you're providing advantage to the gatherer role.
Yeah. So Dagger rolls a 4, and he's unhelpful. So he's constantly distracted by things.
It's meant to just be like a flat if you have an extra person. I think what I'll probably do is expand this to have more roles because it tends to be more than 3 people in a party. But the idea is that like the spare person just grants advantage to a thing.
Oh, he doesn't need to make a roll?
No, but that might be good
or
though.
5e?
It might be good to have a role in there as well. I'm just taking lots of notes during this.
Oh, okay. Yeah, 5e is like you have to,
Oh.
it's like a DC 10 to apply
Can
the
I,
help
can I
action.
interrupt before you go off and do your hunting and say, Lena, maybe it would be a better idea for you to lead the way through the forest. You are the most skilled at navigating in forests.
Very well. If that's what you wish, I'll see to it. And she'll string her bow and like loosen the latch on her arrow bag and like stalk out and disappear ahead of the party and go on point. And what role is that then for leadership?
So you'll be taking leadership, which is anything from survival. Hang on, I'll bring it up again. Survival.
They're all sort of suggestions.
Investigation. Yeah.
Like it's sort of like a skill challenge in that, like if you can rationalize how the ability works, you know, like
Yeah.
if you can make sense of why this skill works, then I think it's probably acceptable most of the time.
Yeah.
Do you
I
then-
remain alert to danger when I'm engaged in another activity such as foraging, navigating, traveling. Difficult terrain doesn't slow my group's travel either.
That's good.
Can I use
Perfect.
perception? Just to
Yeah,
look out.
certainly. Yeah.
Okay, so 14.
Do you want to forage, Charles, or do you want to vigil?
I'm willing to vigil, he says, but do you know what fresh mint smells like?
Not exactly. No, but I think I can hit an animal
Would you know?
with a throwing axe if it needed to.
I'll call on you if I feel I'll miss.
All right, I'll keep an eye out then.
Okay, so that's Charles and Luther on gathering them with an advantage. Then is that?
Am I on gathering and you're on vigilance?
Okay. So we'll start with Lena then with the leadership role. Immediately, it becomes clear to you, taking point, that the thin excuse of a path that you were taking into the wilds vanishes almost immediately. While you can look back and see where you've come from, the gaps of light where the edge of the forest is, you can see that this is going to be particularly hard to maintain one direction in. But you're able to maintain course fairly well. What was the result for the for foraging?
I'm gonna try and use stealth to creep up on some sort of hares, and I get a 23.
23, excellent. Yes, you're able to sneak up upon 2 hares that appear to be sort of nibbling at some roots. You're able to quickly kill 2 hares, which is pretty impressive, but it was a good roll. So yeah, you're able to add 2 supply. to your
Okay.
total. And vigilance.
It was a 13.
Yeah, sorry. You don't see anything. It all seems to be particularly dank in here. The air feels incredibly close. The trunks of these great trees are black with moisture that appears to run down them, and it's very wet underfoot. But you don't see anything prowling between those trees. And so you continue through a continued regular pace. I had forgot to ask, had you actually brought the pack horse in with you?
No, we left them with Prospector,
Oh yeah, okay, that's fine. Just to check. That's
I believe.
Yeah, okay. And it's really difficult for you to tell how long you've been walking because while the trees are thick, you get the odd break in the canopy where you can see the sky and you're able to sort of work out that it's midday or lunchtime at least. So you're able to stop. You take one off your supply to eat and drink. And let's see, noon. Quick break, you eat. One supply. And we need a further vigilance and gatherer check, please. And whoever wants to assist in either of those can say so.
Yeah, I'll just assist where needed. So if vigilance is where it's best needed, I will do so.
Okay, so that'll give me advantage, is it? Yeah. Oh boy. Oh boy. So with advantage, that's going to be a 7. So I guess maybe Dagger's not quite as helpful as...
We fell asleep.
yeah. Maybe like they end up talking about something. They end up chatting like pretty deeply about Dagger's favorite horse, and they sort of swap stories about that for a time, and they sort of forget to some extent, or get lost rather in the conversation, and when they should be keeping an eye out.
You'll give me a perception roll, please.
All of us, did you say, or?
Yeah, all of you.
20.
25.
Oh my god.
23.
Well, at first it is difficult to hear, and then it becomes steadily easier to hear. A good distance from you, you hear sort of like all of a sudden like a violent rustling of branch and leaves, followed by a awful cackling sound. And then the noise is almost enveloped by the strong wind that continues to echo through the trees.
Did it sound like a human laugh?
Yeah.
Luther will spring to his feet and grab the large axe and hold it at the ready, like looking into the trees to see if he can see where it's coming from.
Charles has his great bow off his shoulder and an arrow knocked.
Yeah, you wait in a moment, frozen in time. Just the wind rustling through the branches and the trees, and nothing comes towards you. Nothing approaches.
Charles shoulders his bow then and takes his shield off his back and raises it towards the direction that the cackling came from, and he'll draw his sword and go in that direction, see if he can find the source.
Yeah, Lena will notch an arrow and like stalk maybe 30, 60 feet behind him, covering him as his advance. How dark is it beyond the camp, or what time of day and night is it?
Well, it is about midday, but
Okay.
the forest canopy makes it fairly dark, dim light, I'd say.
I still don't think she'd need a torch or anything, right? So she'll just like knock an arrow and ready to fire, like covering her companion as he stalks off in the sound of that cackling.
Yeah, you'd be able to see perfectly fine. So is it just the two of you going, or are all of you making your way in that direction?
I mean, Luther would follow as well. Just wary of like leaving all our stuff, in case. But no, we'll stick together, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Reluctantly follows. Yep.
Yeah. So with caution, your training just snapping to the forefront of your minds, you take position, a position ready to do battle, and breaking sort of a clearing of the trees. You see the path that had sort of faded almost instantly from entering the forest. You see sort of the remnants of it, which is it's promising in a way. You seem to still be going in the right direction. And lying against the roots of a great tree that stretches into the air, there appears to be a dead serf. A man in rags with a large traveling satchel over his one of his shoulders. He lies there looking up at the branches above him with a mutilated face. This man has clearly been butchered by something or someone, and it is a ghastly sight to behold. So ghastly, in fact, I looked at the stress table to see what seeing a dismembered body does to you. Let's see. Swear that was an option. Seeing a corpse with violent signs of death. Okay. So I'll roll. So you each take 10 points of stress damage. So horrendous is this figure resting against the roots.
So Dag only has 10 or 20, so does he have to roll again now that he's
So if
half
you
his
go
stress?
below half, then you you make a wisdom saving throw. On a failure, you roll on the corruption table.
And that's against a DC of mine that I have in mind, Lloyd? Or is that a general?
So, I mean, either something you pick or it just has 8 plus character's proficiency plus character's wisdom modifier. Whichever you want.
Oh, yeah. So 8 plus your proficiency bonus. Oh, so it's like a personal...
It's like your wisdom DC, sort of,
that you have to roll above.
Yeah.
Huh.
Or you can just set one. Like, if you think it's harder than that, like, definitely just...
Well, I was wondering, because does that then mean that if you have a higher wisdom modifier, then it's a harder DC for you to make, is what I mean?
Yes. But you might have a better wisdom saving throw plus, so it kind of works out.
I see. Well, yeah, let's go with that then. So, did you get that, Daniel? That's 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your wisdom modifier. That is the roll that you need to beat.
Okay. So I didn't drop. So I have 20. So if I took 10, so if I go one more point, then I make the roll.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, because
It's
your
below half,
score,
right?
your stress score, or your is 20 plus your wisdom score.
So I'm at 10 out of 20
Okay.
because I took damage before. Oh yeah. No.
It's plus your wisdom score, not your modifier. Right?
Oh, plus my wisdom score.
That's
Yeah,
it's
the
like
full
hit
number.
points. It's sort of like hit points,
Got
your,
it.
like stress
Right.
total, you know?
27.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Then I'm still good. Still good.
That's all right then. But yeah, this it's still an awful sight to behold. This serf lying there, obviously having desperately tried to steal his way through the wilds with whatever supply and possessions he could carry in his sack, only to be unmade and left to stare at the branches.
Luther has probably seen more dead bodies than most people, having grown up in a certain kind of business, and I think he might be the first one to snap out of it, and he'll like approach a little closer and see if he can determine like what happened to this man.
It's pretty awful to inspect. And as you get closer, you can see that the wounds in the man's face appear to look more like they look like they look more like it doesn't look like he's been attacked with a weapon, put it that way. It looks like something just blunt has just got him in the face.
Yeah, he'll say as much. Wasn't done by a blade.
Is he warm? Was he who cackled, or was it somebody else?
Yeah, Luther will check to see if he's warm or if he's cold.
Luther, make a dexterity saving throw, please.
Oh boy. 4.
Luther, as you reach to touch this individual, he suddenly twitches with a violent spasm and his wounded, morphed face contorts in pain as this body lifts from the ground by something pulling him up by his neck. Roots spring up all around him and through him, through the cavernous holes where his eyes were. You start seeing reaching, clawing roots that rake at your face, doing 5 points of slashing damage to you. This man is being lifted up by roots, puppeteered by some dark will of the wild, and it springs for you all. Roll initiative.
I take stress for that, almost certainly, I would think.
We'll deal with that at the end, don't worry.
So I think even someone who has seen a lot of shit would lose their mind, you know? Like...
Would you mind putting the initiative in a nice, neat thing? Like, sorry, I can do it.
With
Oh, okay, cool.
and
Just writing a few things down, not being lazy.
is Nico here? Is Nico in the initiative?
Yeah. I got 14 all up. My bonus is +7.
Excellent.
Yeah, initiative, because I get to add my wisdom and my dex.
So Dagger, you sort of reel in surprise at seeing this thrall, this grim marionette, sort of be lifted into the air by its neck, a root protruding from the back of his head, and swipes out at Luther, who staggers back, clutching at his eyes from where he's just been swiped at. What do you do?
Yeah, instinct kind of kicks in. He's still kind of confused about the situation and taken back by it. The fear maybe on his companion's face, but he bellows something incoherent as he charges forth. His axe already ready from the march up. He tries to bring it down on the roots of this thing, to silence it.
Absolutely.
Does 22 hit it?
It absolutely does, yes.
Okay. Then it will take 6 points of slashing damage. And then I'll bring the rim of my shield down on it also as a bonus action. Does 14 hit it?
It does not. It is frantically sort of dragging itself away from your first successful swipe. As your blade cuts into it, you see this viscous black fluid just oozing from where you struck it. Your shield going wide as it reels back, and it goes as it swings around and returns a strike towards you with an attack of... Okay. Still rolls pretty well. Does a 17 hit you, Dagger?
It does not. It probably
Excellent.
hits steel or met with wood.
I would also like you to make a dexterity saving throw, please.
A mighty 7.
Yeah, so it lunges at you with the human hands, tries to sort of just seize you and strike out at you, but you're able to block it with your shield. But then roots sort of springing from like his chest, like sweep forward, grabbing around your legs and sweeping you to the ground. You are now prone. It is Bones' turn.
She'll reel back, stepping like backwards as she fumbles for a different kind of arrow. Forgive the pun, but is the tree thrall rooted to the ground or like mobile?
Yeah, it would seem by a certain distance.
In that case, I'll pull out a barbed arrow, mark it as my quarry, and let fly from about 45 feet away for a 17 on the die plus silly.
Plus silly definitely hits.
I get to add d6 for my quarry. My dice roll. Damage is +3, and its movement speed is halved until the end of my next turn. And
Yowzers.
It needs to make a grit check on its turn as an action to pull the arrow out to stop its movement being halved. So it's slowed by my quarry shot, but also because the arrow's barbed, it's got movement halved as well, which I guess means like movement quartered till the end of my next turn, and then movement halved until it takes a grit check as an action to pull it out.
Gotcha.
Once it pulls it out, it suffers the bleeding condition.
That's really good. So it's looming over Dagger, and then out of nowhere, this arrow just pierces through it, and it actually the arrow slides into part of the root attached to the back of his neck. So the arrow goes through here, making its movement way more just restricted than it would be if it were free. And it gives that in objection. You're not quite sure if it can feel pain, but definitely objection. Luther.
Friends, back from it, she'll cry and haul another arrow up onto the string.
Oh, sorry.
And it's 7 damage too. That's all it took.
Yeah, damage definitely helps. Perfect. Next. Does not hit. The second hit misses. Oh yes, of course. Yeah, and it will take it. Yeah, it lashes out wildly with a 17 to hit. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so you feel once again these scratching thorn-like roots writhing out from this body at you,
Oh,
and
I
you
was going to
take.
say, hang on, can I impose, because I'm also a Huskar, can I impose disadvantage from being prone? I don't know if I can do that, being prone.
I don't think so from being prone, because it sort of wrapped its roots onto you and pulled you to the ground, basically.
Got it.
But Lloyd, that'll be 6 points of damage, slashing. Perfect. Yeah. So as you stagger away from this thing, Charles Millers.
As the battle rages on, you hear him shout, "Watchmen, we are hunters. Our lives this cannot take. It should not try to take. It should not attempt the kill beyond its skill to make." And with his songs of slaying, it spurs you onto a greater battle. And for the rest, anyone within 30 feet of me will do an extra d4 on the next attack roll. They can add it to their attack or to their damage as they like.
That's amazing. And is there anything else you can do?
It doesn't say whether that's... I may expend one of your warden dice. It doesn't say whether that's an action or not, but I'm guessing it is.
Sounds like it would be, but yeah, but you still got your movement. Anything else? Yeah.
To me, Villiers, the thing will be slowed.
Yeah, I'll move to his side with my shield ready, and I'll call out, "There's a honey cake for you if you can escape!" I shout to Dagger, and giving you the equivalent of bardic inspiration, D6. Or can I not give both? I probably can't give both. It's not very clearly worded, but I don't think I can give both in one round.
No, I don't think so. No, but I mean that's fine though. Your first one is still absolutely fine. So yeah, as you move back, go ahead.
So it's everybody within 30 feet gets a d4 on the next roll.
Excellent. That's really good. So Dagger, you're there upon the ground, these roots sort of beginning to snare around you, and this thing with his ruined face and roots pouring out of his face, it's sort of clawing its way towards you. You first of all need to make a strength check.
Oh, I am grappled too, not prone and grappled.
You're prone and it's on you, so you have to sort of fight it off to.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess grappled. Yeah.
Okay,
so sorry, athletics or yeah.
I'll take athletics for sure. Yeah. 25. It has me. Yeah. It has me, boys. It means to take me.
Yeah, it's desperately trying to hold on to you, but you are able to fight it off. So you're able to. Is
that an action?
No. If you manage to break it, you still get your action. You're fine.
Okay. Then I defensively ward it off with my axe. Essentially,
you can attack or move. Essentially.
Yeah, I'm just gonna essentially taking the disengage action, but I'm flavoring it as I'm swinging wildly at it with my axe, kind of aiding my escape. And then once I get kind of within safe distance, at least out of the range where I think it can reach once again and grasp me, I bury my axe within the soft earth, pull forth a throwing axe and whip it back at it, taking an acid surge.
Very nice.
Okay, that hits 23.
Yeah, you can see its roots trying to reach out to intercept the axe, but the axe just cuts through them and it buries itself deep into the root thrall.
Sweet. It'll take 10 points of slashing damage, and you said an extra D3 from bardic inspiration or some type of bardic ability.
A D4.
D4. Is that damage or is that to hit.
Hang on, it's D4 to hit. Alternatively, any creature that has one of your Warden gift dice, which is Bardic Inspiration dice, can roll the die and add the number rolled to the weapon damage roll that they just made. So I don't know whether that the D4, maybe the D4 doesn't count towards weapon damage. You needed my Bardic Inspiration earlier. Okay, it doesn't matter. But
Okay, well, it's 1 otherwise. So 10 slashing or 11 if you add that one. I don't know.
Okay. Yep, that's fine. Yeah, so you it buries itself, like I say, into the thing, and it gives like a as it's desperately trying to pull itself towards you, but it is encumbered in doing so. This arrow lodged in its root is causing the joints of the thing to not work properly. Did you say it's slowed by a half and a quarter then, Nico?
Yep, till the end of my next turn, its movement is quartered. At the end of my next turn, its movement is halved, and then it has to take an action to do a grit check, which has to succeed at. The DC for that is 8 plus 2 plus 4, 14. And so it'll be movement speed half while the barbed arrow is still in it. For now, it's quarter speed.
I'm going to say, because of the nature of the creature, it isn't really thinking about removing that. So it is just going to press on and leave the arrow in itself. Like, it doesn't seem to be, that doesn't appear to be its concern. So instead, what it does is it's just howling and gasping and sort of dragging itself across the ground towards Dagger still. And that's all it can do with its turn. Bones.
She's going to retreat further, 40 feet, unless she'll lose clear line of sight on the horror. And then she'll just pull a regular arrow this time and let fly at it. 11 on the die, so 18 to hit for 7 plus 3, 10 damage this time.
As this beast sort of uses its last remaining strength to hurl itself at Dagger, how does Bones' shot kill it?
I think just through the brain, like the arrow cuts through like the little tendril of root that isn't kind of woody and like tree-like, but is like some like supernatural thing that's thralling this carcass. And with the destruction of that like nerved tendril, the bond is severed, and the thing like collapses in on its own weight, crushes itself.
Yeah, perfect. And as the carcass sort of sinks to the ground, what remaining roots that were in it sort of retreat from it and sink into the ground. You defeated the root thrall.
She'll look down piteously at the thing and spit, and then go over, see that both those arrows were destroyed in the collapse, but she'll harry with a dagger to take the barbed arrowhead out and save it to craft anew at another day. Are you okay? She'll ask those who have been like struck at by the thrall.
Just some scratches, I think. He'll like bring his hand up to his face where like most of the damage is. I guess it's like scratches and things like that. It doesn't burn or anything, does it, Rob?
No, it doesn't feel like you've been infected or anything, but it is incredibly unnerving to you, and because of that, you're going to take some stress damage.
Yeah.
Do we feel like, I mean, would that be stress damage to all of you for seeing such a horrible thing, or is it just you because you got surprised by it? Like,
and it could be all of us. Like, it depends on how often we see things like this. Like, is this a thing that we might expect to see in the woods? Not this specifically, but like the dead living or whatever. Because if you're sort of inured to it and you expect monsters, it's not so stressful. But I think me going up to it thinking it's dead and it like freaking out and jumping at me, I think that definitely requires a stress roll. But if the watch frequently engages with like weird
stuff for sure,
stuff,
maybe not this. Yeah,
I don't know. You know.
Okay. In that case, then for now, until I work something out about that, we'll just say that's for you then. So I'll roll 4 stress damage.
Okay.
Yeah, just sort of wigged you out a bit, caught you off guard. Not nice.
Yeah, he'll see that in his dreams tonight, I think. But yeah, he'll just like see to the scratches on his face and make sure nothing is like too deep or too problematic. And once that's done, he'll clean the blood off his, or not even blood, I guess. Like, is it even blood on his weapons? And stow them properly.
You find within the satchel that this individual was carrying, wrapped in some cloth, you find some rotten bread, but wrapped in a separate sort of wicker box that's within it. There are some herbs that appear to have escaped any blemish of any kind. They will improve your meals somewhat, making them more effective. So that's +4 supply, but 1 each essentially. So you each get +1 to your supply to make your shit food not taste quite as shit when it gets bad.
Shit food? Rubbish.
I mean, when you're eating worms out of the ground 20 days from now. Okay, so that was the afternoon. So if you would like to take one, sorry, I keep giving you 1 supply and then taking 1 away. But yeah, so you are able to have lunch, and I will ask, please, for a gatherer and vigilant check, please, as you continue today's journey.
16 for the gatherer and
Okay.
survival. So
20 for the vigilant. Sorry, 24.
Perfect. So on the journey, whilst Charles, you're foraging, I'd like you to roll me a d10, please, Caius, and tell me the result.
10.
So you look up into one of the trees that you pass by, and your eye falls upon a beehive that sort of hangs from one of the trees. Within, beautiful golden honey that could greatly improve certain dishes that you already have planned to make.
Yeah, so he patches on the floor to make the sound of falling water, and sort of drops some water so they all go into the hive, and starts up a little fire underneath so the smoke sort of keeps them inside, and then he sort of thrusts in and hopefully finds a sort of I'm wondering if he has a pipe or something that he can just drain. But he just sticks his sword from the bottom up into the where he thinks the honey would be, and lets it run out, capturing it in a pot as it runs down his sword blade. But the smoke's burning around him.
Yeah, that's really cool. And you'd already made the roll, so I'm just going to say you're able to do that. You have memories of draining the honey from hives before, a little trick you learned way back. So yeah, you're able to get that, and that honey will be able to give you. Let's see, how much do you get? 3 plus 3 supply.
Cool.
Something to sweeten the mixes that you make. And that really amazing vigilant roll means that you're able to avoid any dangerous territory. You expertly are keeping watch and there is not a sound of a cackle or a rustle of a branch around you at all. And so it is now that it begins to grow even darker. You are losing light rapidly. So the time has come for you to make a camp. Do you light a fire?
Certainly.
Yeah, I'd say yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'd rather face something that finds us than shiver all night.
That's fair.
Mega likes fires.
So, in that case, I would have you all make your rolls for the evening. So, leader check, vigilance check, gather check.
I'm on vigilance, am I?
I'll do gathering this time because I get an extra 1 supply when I gather because of my doppelganger.
Okay.
So
I'll do vigilance, if that's all right then.
I'll get Dagger to come with me to lend me a hand if he might.
Yep.
I'll roll the leading then. I got 17. It's meant to be though that you choose the start of the day, and that's the roll for the day. And it's
Yeah, I think you
middle.
stick to whatever roll you pick for the day.
I got a 15.
And that was for what, sorry?
Gathering.
Gathering. Fine, okay.
I get a 19 on perception.
Vigilance, okay. And what was the leader roll, sorry?
17.
17. Okay, so you've made good time. The gathering yields... let's see. Not that much. 2 supply. What do you think you found in the woods for 2 supply?
Like a nest, like a bird's nest filled with eggs, but the parents are absent, and nearby there's like a petals of feathers that have fallen down to where it's probably been killed by something. And she'll take the eggs to like break up in a helm and like make like an omelette or something. And she'll take the bird's nest for kindling on like tinder, and like return to the camp and put the eggs down into the cook's supplies.
Perfect. And that vigilant roll was really good. So you can sleep in the knowledge that you are safe, well, as safe as you can be in these parts, and you rest. A restless sleep. And if you do dream, you either don't remember them or are not affected by them in any way. But it is often like how when you sleep outside, it feels like you close your eyes and then like a second goes by and then you open your eyes and then you can sort of see the loose streams of daylight breaking the canopies above. It is now morning and there is a gentle rain that creeps through the canopy and drips down the backs of your necks. You will have slept in what cover you can find, so you're not soaked when you wake up, but it's just an uncomfortable atmosphere to wake up to. It is then that I'm going to ask you to choose your roles that we'll pick for the day. So who is going to be the leader for today? Okay. So Luther is the leader. Who is going to be gathering?
I'll gather.
Oh.
I'll gather. I get the +1 to supply when I do gathering for my party.
Oh,
so
yes, that makes sense.
A 20.
So I'll do the vigilance.
And Dagger, do you want to assist on any of those?
Yeah, I seem to be. I mean, Lena seems to be best at finding food, so he wants to be closest to that. So he'll assist there.
So advantage to gather then.
Yep, still a 20.
Ooh, lovely. All right, this is perfect. And what was the vigilant roll?
9.
So, Luther, you are fairly confident about the way you're going to go about things. There are some things that the watch are capable of that a normal person in this situation wouldn't be able to do, and that is you are able to essentially roughly know where you're going at most times just by examining the ground, looking for certain tracks, or even which way the wind blows. And you're able to keep you and your companions on course. And it is as you remain on course that you realize that the trees that are around you are beginning to change in species. No longer are you surrounded by these corrupted, dark-looking oak and beech trees. You see thinner trees sort of surrounding you, and they appear to be almost garbed in incredibly long, thin thorns. It is a type of tree that you might have seen before in your travels on the watch. It's just thorn trees. For no better or more apt description can be thought of for them. And it is there that we are able to nourish ourselves on that excellent supply roll, because a number of birds met a terrible fate in gliding through the woods, wishing to land upon one of these trees, but misjudging it, not seeing the razor-thin barbs reaching out to meet them. So there are a number of pre-skewered birds hanging from different parts of these trees. You notice that a lot of ivy and overgrowth covers part of them as well, hangs off them. So if you were to press into one of these trees, you would receive a rather nasty spike as well. So you're able to gain 5 supply. I'm sure you're not above picking poultry like off a shelf.
I think at times there's been a few things we're above.
Yeah.
Still pretty low. Is that like, so is it really essential that each day we should just take 3 supply and then add at the end of the day whatever we like have got through?
Essentially, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you eat 3 times a day. Yeah.
I think it might be better to have supply just be a once a day check than 3 times.
Well, you eat, so it's meant to simulate like, you wake up, have breakfast. It's also meant to encourage scenes at each of those places.
Okay.
So like you're having breakfast, you're checking the map when you wake up, you are planning the route for the day, scouting ahead and stuff like that, and then stop for lunch, do the same thing, and then at night you kind of, so it's not necessarily about like the quickest option.
Supplies as okay.
It's sort of about like the journey itself,
Yeah. So yeah, before you lies, like I say, just a vast collection of these trees with these vicious-looking thorns jutting from its bark, or their bark, and that is where your path is leading you. Do you wish to discuss this at all, or just press on through?
Could we use your bardiche to like like a machete to like hack a path through that so that we're not spined?
Yeah, I think so. I'm also heavily armored and stuff, so I think maybe I'm the man for the job. I've got this like big heavy axe. He doesn't love chopping wood with it, but we'll certainly do so to avoid any sort of damage from this thing if we can do so. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. With care, you're not just going to walk into them in any way. So you're able to do that and hack away what you need to with the bardiche in single file, one after the other.
Yeah, I think I'll bring up the rear with the bow.
Yeah. Yep. So you continue on your way, slightly slowed now. You think at the back of your mind, maybe once being told about the thorn fields, rumor of just this invasive species springing up all over the place, hampering travelers and looking pretty horrendous in their way. And they aren't pleasant to be around, to be honest. There's a sort of a sense of decay that comes from them, as if they aren't quite right, not real trees, not natural trees. But yeah, you press on, slowed, and
Luther would think, sort of like as we're walking through, that it's sort of like bizarre graveyard, I think, of wildlife, and I think you'd probably see like similarly birds and things like that, like impaled upon them and like kept there, and like bones in the trees. And this doesn't seem. There's no green and there's no life from them in the way that you get from the sense you get from like a normal tree. He definitely feels uncomfortable as he's like hacking through.
yeah. Now that was the morning checks, wasn't it, or was that the afternoon checks we just did?
Morning, I think.
I think it was morning. Yeah, you're right. So some not leadership, but we want gathering and vigilant checks, please.
15 for the gathering.
Okay. Yeah, so +3 supply for that roll. Further animals and creatures that you have found skewered and within reach.
There's 23 for vigilance.
In the distance, not too far from you, you hear a cackle.
Villiers turns around to see if his if his companions have also registered the laugh, and there's a little under his breath laugh. Then, as before, raises his shield, draws his sword, and then sheathes his sword and takes an axe and goes in the direction of the laughter, presuming they're following in it and covering him with their bows, etc.
Yep, certainly.
Yeah, perfect. As you all follow, you make your way through these thorn trees very carefully, moving in and out. And there's another come from in front of you, close now. And suddenly you're able to move a branch and you step into a clearing. I would like you all to do perception checks for me, please.
20 all up.
15.
7.
And that was a 6 from. So, as you're leading, then, Villas, Charles, you move this branch away, and before you see something really, really unnerving. Crouched on all fours, you see a figure, humanoid. but his attire is incredibly disturbing. Around his body, bound with straps of look to be flesh, you see this individual is garbed head to toe with rotting, bleeding animal hide. And over his head, there is a kind of cowl that appears to be some awful, stretched jackal face. And he's just staring at you and cackling. And Lena, with your perception check, as you see this figure in front of you, you sense something move next to you. And you turn and you see an eye open next to you as more of these figures covered in these thorns, camouflaging themselves into the trees around you, spring alive, and they attack. And that is where we're going to leave the session tonight. So that was really interesting. I really love these rules as a way to structure sort of a journey. This took much longer than I thought it would, but in a good way, I think, thanks to some nice character work and stuff. So thank you ever so much for those that played. Thank you very much to those who have watched live and after the fact. And I hope that all of your performances are up to standard. Don't know why I did that.